This is the Run Pod Option. I'm Marty.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jeff.
And we are a part of the Fifth Quarter Network. Visit fifthquarter.net. Gentlemen, this is our last recording of 2019. We made it.
We did it, guys.
We did it, and it's going to be released on the 1st of 2020, and it's our first recording for Fifth Quarter. It's the start of a new decade, start of a new era for Run Pod Option. I'm really excited.
The future is now.
The future is now. You can follow us on Twitter at RunPodOption or email us runpodoption@gmail.com. Check out Fifth Quarter Network, the Discord, which we're recording in now. You can listen in while we're recording, which is neat, or you can always hear us later because we're going to release the podcast at least one day, sometimes 2 days after we record, depending on how long we go. So, where we last left off was the Sugar Bowl, I believe. Kyle, was that right?
I think so.
So we previewed the Sugar Bowl, and we have 6 more bowls all the way from the Birmingham Bowl to the LendingTree Bowl, and then the National Championship is what we're going to be covering on the show today. But before we get to our bowl picks and to our bowl previews, did you guys catch the playoffs?
No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of the BCS.
No controversy. It was wonderful.
Let's controversy.
Go back to it.
So let's kick it off. So we had number 1 LSU, number 4 Oklahoma, and when I made that BCS joke, I'm not joking. I saw that a lot. I saw it a lot on Twitter about people being upset that Oklahoma was in it because they were in it only in spirit. They were not in it in the scoreboard. LSU absolutely destroyed them. I've never really seen anything like that, man. It was insane.
Burrow boat raced them.
Yeah, did he end up with 7 touchdowns in the first half?
7 touchdowns. He might have had 8 in the first half because he rushed for 1 too.
I think it was 7.
It was 7, yeah, because they only scored 7 touchdowns in the first half. So he had 8. He accounted for 8 of the 9 touchdowns that they ended up scoring. Like, we all knew that LSU's offense was good, right? We've seen it all year. Never in a million years did I guess that was going to happen.
Well, the score wasn't even indicative of how bad it was.
No, you're right, because I think that if LSU wanted to, they could have scored at 80.
Yeah.
Jeff, you said that Jalen Hurts deserved the Heisman. I can't even say it with a straight face. So, y'all remember when Jalen Hurts was the only guy that was threatening for the Heisman? And he was, I think, probably the worst player in this game. And we've been talking about the last 4 or 5 weeks just how their successes and their failures seem to be coming at the hands of Jalen Hurts. He loves himself.
Literally the hands.
The hands. Whether it be fumbles, interceptions, or touchdowns, rushing or through the air. He showed just how much that offense gets brought down because Lincoln Riley with time has always been good.
I was just kind of stunned. It was like a blitzkrieg at the starting of it. It just fast, just boom, 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 points, and Oklahoma didn't have enough to get out of that, and their defense just had no business being in there.
Jeff, what was your biggest take from the game? In terms of just like big picture here, not just, LSU beat the shit out of Oklahoma.
I think after kind of reflecting on it, you saw the same Hurts that you saw at Alabama, and, people online and everywhere talked about Alabama having to move on from Hurts to move upwards, and I think you're seeing that again. Hurts was great this year for Oklahoma, but I think he limits them in where they want to go. And it's next year. I don't know if it's going to be a transfer, if it's going to be Spencer Rattler, but they're going to need better quarterback play if they want to.
Got to be the Rattler, man.
Make it past this.
I hope it's the Rattler, and it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I think when Tua came in to relieve Hurts, right, that first time, and we see this explosive Alabama defense, it was a very similar feeling for me that it is watching LSU now, of this team that formerly got average to above average, occasionally great quarterback play, but Hurts was like the odd man out. They'd had all these boring quarterbacks, and then Hurts comes in, you're like, wow, and he can run. This is really new for Alabama. And then Tua comes in, Lane comes in, that offense comes in, and Alabama starts scoring 40 points, and it's just like, oh, okay, so that's incredible, new offense. And I didn't really think about it at the time that it was because Jalen Hurts maybe was slowing that roll down. And this year, Oklahoma's proved that he doesn't have the passing ability that Tua had, certainly. But Oklahoma did the right thing in building the offense around him, just running himself to death, because that's all they had in a lot of those games this year.
Well, he was insane at the starting of the season, though. But it was against, the Houstons of the world, which ended up being not as great as we all thought it was going to be.
Yeah, he felt untouchable until Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, did you by chance see the article, I think it was in The Athletic, that discussed LSU's drop percentage from receivers?
I did not.
Okay, so last year, I want to say they were definitely in the bottom half. I want to say they were closer to the 80s or 90s in drop percentage from their receivers. And this year, they are I think they're top 5 in the country for the best drop percentage from their receivers. Like, they don't drop anything. And I'm wondering, the offense has obviously improved, but how much better it is because they're literally catching every single pass that touches their hands. Because I don't think I've seen that, and especially when you see how many dropped balls there have been throughout this bowl season for almost every team. LSU, I don't really know, critical drops even come to mind. Maybe from a running back, coming out of the backfield, but that's half expected, I guess.
And who is their receivers coach? Is Brady passing game coordinator and receivers coach?
He's passing game coordinator, I know for sure. As far as the receivers coach, I honestly don't have an idea. I can't tell you.
Dwayne Bowe.
It seems like it's finally, the culmination of LSU having super talented receivers and great coaching, combining together. Because for years they've had really good receivers. They just haven't performed well at LSU. But this year it's like all the ingredients mixed together just hit the jackpot.
It was always startling because the receivers would come in the NFL, they'd produce, and you'd say, LSU had 2,800 yards passing. And how did Odell Beckham not have a bigger career, in college?
What are you going to do with Zach Mettenberger?
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's go to the number 2 versus the number 3, Ohio State, Clemson Tigers. This has been, at this point, my favorite bowl of the year so far.
It was fun.
It's probably the best playoff game in the playoff history.
From start to finish, maybe. I think that Oklahoma-Georgia game might have an argument for you.
Yeah.
What about that Clemson win over Alabama?
The drubbing last year?
No, not last year. The Hunter Renfrow catch.
Yeah, you might be right there.
This game was definitely the hardest hitting game out of the two because I don't think Oklahoma could touch a LSU player. I was surprised at. Well, let's air the dirty laundry first.
Well, Ohio State also. It was the most hard hitting because Ohio State hit too many players, like the punter,
the quarterback.
All right, you guys segued perfectly into what my next point was going to be. So, a lot of Ohio State fans, they mad,
and mad online.
And let's call two things the way they are, right? The punting penalty, that's an obvious, that was a penalty, right?
So dumb.
The targeting, while I don't agree with the rule, it was targeting. Even though it was a result of Trevor Lawrence, all 6'6" of him, putting his head down, it's still targeting, so that's unfortunate. The only play that I really kind of had problems with, and it gets wiped clean by another point I'm going to make later, or that you guys might make, is the fumble return for a touchdown. So Justin Ross catches it, he has possession of it, he strips it, they return it, and it's a touchdown. And I think that's what it was called on the field, and they needed indisputable evidence to overturn it, right?
That's my problem with it right there.
Yeah, I don't understand how a professional makes that call that incorrectly.
Well, also the referee, on TV, their rules dude, he sits there and says that, this he didn't make a football move. How does taking a couple steps, not a football move. I don't like that explanation at all. It doesn't make much sense to me. That clearly was a catch. There wasn't enough to overturn it. That's the thing, is that there wasn't enough to overturn it.
I agree. He even mentioned, if I remember this correctly, that, hey, listen, guys, it's a bang-bang play on the field there. Things look a lot different in slow motion. And it's like, brother, that's literally why we have this. What do you think we're doing here?
Yeah, but they make the referees watch stuff in game speed.
In the replay? Do they really? There's no way they don't have the slow motion. They have to have the slow motion.
Let's say it looked a lot worse in slow motion than it did in real time.
Mm-hmm. But they do want them to look at it in real time. Because I've heard this in the NFL as well, where they say that it's that slow motion makes things look more egregious than they are.
Okay, so in with that point,
which to me is just like, that's the point.
Yes, this is, what are we doing then? But to your point, then, how was it called on the field?
It was called a fumble. Which
this is
exactly.
I'm waving my arms around. This is not a visual medium, but it's baffling. And the second point I was going to make is Ohio State has themselves to blame, right? They could have put it. It should not have been. What was it? 16-0. It should have been 24-0. And Oklahoma State, the different game. Ohio State couldn't knock it in when they had Clemson.
Spencer Sanders had nothing to do with this. Do not.
Yeah, please don't bring him into this.
Don't bring him into this.
So yeah, they could have put them away. I think they could have put them away a long time ago, right? At the beginning of the second quarter, maybe midway through the second quarter, they had a chance. You can take everything away. You can give the targeting, all that other stuff. But when it comes down to it, Ohio State really, for the first time all year, had an entire half, maybe since a Wisconsin game, had a half where they didn't score as many points as there were available to them.
They fucked up.
For the first time, I think, trying to think of the last time even, they looked mortal. And that's both in a literal sense and, the team. I mean, Fields was hurt. You could tell he was not himself. He threw the ball pretty well, but he barely ran. And then once Dobbins got hurt, that was a game changer because Clemson could just tee off on Fields and when Dobbins was in there. So it's a shame when a team's not full strength, but I mean, you play the cards,
Yeah, I think if Fields was totally healthy, maybe the game goes differently, right? The ifs. As it was, I came away extremely impressed with Clemson, man. That team is nuts. Trevor Lawrence running the ball scares me, like both from a aesthetic point where he has just he kind of has the, I didn't watch much Friends, but what's her face that runs kind of funky with her legs sprawling out? He has a funny gait, and when he gets tackled, he spins, and it scares me to death that he's going to get his head taken off.
Well, the most impressive part about it is that Clemson's doing it with 2- and 3-star guys. Nobody thought they'd be there.
It's on. I mean, they didn't only beat the Buckeyes, Kyle. They beat the world.
They did.
They had God on their side. That's what Dabo said.
This has become a crusade.
I feel bad for Chris Olave, who came out, said he was responsible for the interception. That's tough, and I haven't looked for it because I'm afraid of what I'd see. But if anybody tweets at him that it's his fault, just start watching the NFL or something. Get out of here, man. It's a bummer because it wasn't his fault. He did everything he could in that game, and they came up short. And we've got Clemson and LSU in the national championship.
And at the end of the day, Ohio State made a ton of mistakes. I will go back to that punt. Why are you hitting the punter? Just calm down. You got them kind of buried a little bit. You're going to get good field position.
So we're gonna move on to any other bowls we want to discuss, and then the bowl previews, and then the national championship preview. Right? You bring up a good point in terms of making mistakes, making poor judgments. So I'd like to start off this conversation with: did you guys check that Pittsburgh and Eastern Michigan game out? And did you see
that heavyweight fight?
Heavyweight fight at the end. Did we see the most Ric Flair bump the ref has ever taken in college football when Mike Glass open hand attempted to slap By the way, the wrong Pittsburgh player that actually was talking shit and grazed the ref's hat to only get ejected from the game.
I mean, it's that bad blood that you got between directional Michigan and Pittsburgh.
Story as old as time.
Jeff, was this like an internal, like, just terrible deal for you? Just a terrible conflict just because you love Detroit so much and you love Pittsburgh?
I actually thoroughly enjoyed the game because I wasn't expecting a shootout to happen, and it ended up. I think both quarterbacks had over 300 yards passing. It turned out to be a really entertaining game.
It was a fantastic game. It was. I was so ready to tune out and not watch that game. There was probably like 4 or 5 on this list that when I knew I wasn't going to be working, probably not going to check it out, right? And it was definitely on that list 100%. Michigan State and Wake Forest was the other one, and I ended up watching both of those games. But Pittsburgh, I think they're still bad. I do think they're still bad for whatever that's worth.
There's no question that Pittsburgh is bad. It's Pittsburgh.
For any new listeners to the show, I maybe we'll do like a quick reintroduction here. So I'm Marty, right? I'm a fan of SMU. Kyle, I'm going to speak for them. Kyle's a Syracuse fan. He hates Pittsburgh. Yes. And Jeff is a Michigan fan. And we're all from those respective states too, but we live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. Moving forward, what was some of your favorite bowls, fellas, that's happened since we've covered? Up to the Sugar Bowl right now. We're recording this on the 30th. There's a Virginia and Florida game going on. That it was another one on my list that I did not plan on watching.
I'm going to tell you right now what one of my favorite moments was, and that's the 12-minute drive that Air Force put together in the first quarter.
Yeah, it helped that game really get started, I feel like.
Well, I mean, it was a clash of styles, as we said it was going to be.
Yeah, there was a lot less points than I figured. I probably had 20 more points scored total. But we watched this game together, Kyle, you and I, and Air Force looked unstoppable on offense. It was crazy.
Unstoppable 3 yards at a time, man.
Yep, just chipping them to death.
You want 20 plays? Here you go.
Jeff, while you were harassing Steve Adazio, did you catch any bowl games?
One of the games I caught, and what's really a surprise, was Kent State scoring 51 points on Utah State.
Why are you watching Kent State?
We had talked a little bit about, expecting Utah State and the High Flyers to knock them out, but it ended up being a really high-scoring game, and kudos to Kent State for winning, because I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, and on Jeff and I's preview portion of the podcast 2 weeks ago...
Poor preview.
Utah State was far and away our choice. I don't think we considered Kent State really to have a shot at all, and their quarterback Crum really has something. Iowa-USC was kind of a weird game.
Yeah,
really weird.
Iowa looked really good.
Iowa looked great.
USC is trash.
I say that Kirk Ferentz is just like a really good coach, and maybe we've just been kind of
Where was that against Michigan earlier in the year?
See, that's the thing.
If I remember correctly, that was a really bad game to watch.
A lot of people were I was reading through Twitter, and people were like shocked at how good Iowa was. I think USC just sucks. Like, their defense
just offended the great defender of Graham Harrell.
No, I think he's right. I mean, I think that USC. You think he's right? I think. Let me add this little caveat: if Slovis doesn't get knocked out of the game, I think it's closer for whatever that's worth. But they exposed USC's lack of defense, lack of any kind of special teams. They beat him in all 3 phases, and that's kind of what Iowa does. Yeah, I do sound like Jason Garrett. I'm clapping right now.
And also spitting.
Clapping unemployment.
It was crazy seeing them dominate all 3 facets of the game, and I think that's a credit to what Iowa is, especially this year. They're not exceptional, but like if you come in and you're not prepared, they're gonna be the I'm trying to think of the correct word here.
The excellence of execution?
There's the excellence of execution is what Kirk Ferentz is known. That is canon for our show now.
Kirk the Hitman Ferentz?
Kirk the Hitman Ferentz is absolutely it.
Oh, God. Can we talk about how Slovis's neck is made of rubber?
That was a tough hit to watch.
It was like almost identical how his head hit the ground as in the Utah game?
No, that was Fink
Yeah, Slovis got knocked out in the first drive.
So he's got a rubber neck.
Like, I don't know how his head is going to hold up through his entire college. Does he need to have like a neck brace on? Do they need to give him like the Brian Cox like neck board in the back?
No, but that's it's a good question because he's a freshman and he's almost certainly had 2 really bad concussions in his first year.
Yeah.
And that's a tough age to get it, and it's not fun to see, but if he starts next year for USC and he hits another concussion, you got to start thinking about your life after football, going pro in something other than sports.
Okay, NCAA tagline.
Did we watch Hawaii Brigham Young on Christmas Eve by any chance?
No, I had Christmas things to do.
Okay, well, finally I pick against Hawaii, and then Hawaii wins the game. I did see that. I just want everyone to know that former Hawaii supporter, no longer, they are dead to me. Cole McDonald, good riddance.
You are no Colt Brennan.
Yeah, you'll never beat Colt.
You are not Timmy Chang.
Jeez.
Do y'all want an update on our picks for bowls?
Oh, sure. Why
cool.
not?
So Jeff, for the season, smoked me and Kyle both, and then Kyle and I were pretty close going into the bowl season. Kyle started trying to catch up with Jeff and was contradictory to almost every pick he made, and it really hasn't worked out so far. For the bowl results, currently Jeff and I both sit at 16-9, and Kyle sits at 12-13, which again is not bad. I want to point out that
I'm right here for mediocrity, guys.
Which puts the season total with Jeff with 128 picked correctly, me at 112, and Kyle at 107. So Kyle, we are about to enter these picks. We almost certainly, just taking a glance here, we have 3 games that haven't been played. I'm sorry, 4 that have been played that you've already picked opposite of me. So you're only, if you want to play this game again, if you want to
I'm going to play this game again.
Picks.
No, I'm playing Russian roulette against you on all picks.
Okay,
I'm going to defend it. Yeah.
Are we ready to get into the picks then?
Let's do it.
So we'll start with the Birmingham Bowl, January 2nd on a Thursday. We have 6-6 Boston College against 10-3 Cincinnati. This shows me just how broken these bowl bids are because Cincinnati deserves a better opponent. Boston College doesn't have Adazio. Jeff chased him out of town.
That might be better for them.
Boston College also doesn't have A.J. Dillon.
Oh, it's going to get ugly.
And Cincinnati has Desmond
Syracuse
Ritter.
game. Watching the Syracuse versus Boston College game. Apparently all of their running backs are great.
Didn't a blind guy score on Syracuse?
I scored on Syracuse this year.
I mean,
it's weird.
It's a lot of rushing yards, I think.
Didn't a guy lose his job over that game?
500 fucking yards. Jesus Christ.
There's not a whole lot I really want to point out about the game. I don't have a whole lot of deep analysis. The only thing I really wanted to kind of point out was Cincinnati has a pretty good defense, right? That's Luke Fickell's thing. Boston College, for not having a great passing game and for not having A.J. Dillon, their offensive line, did you know that all 5 received ACC honors this year?
Because they're dudes.
They're absolutely dudes.
Were they all second team because Clemson got... It's just
all
Clemson
5
was the first team.
And Boston College was the second team, all behind that 498 yards, whatever they ran on Syracuse.
Yeah.
So we're going to pick these straight up, no spread. Let's go ahead and get y'all's picks. I am going with Cincinnati with a bullet.
I hate you. Because I have to pick Boston College now. I have no defense for this. I really don't. Just it's Boston College is going to win because they're in a Power 5 conference. The best Power 5 conference.
That's a defense if I've ever heard it. Jeff, who do you have?
Is Anthony Brown Anthony Brown's hurt, right?
Yeah, he's in the transfer portal, isn't he?
He abandoned
Don't need one. Don't need a running back.
They're just going to do a center sneak and just he's going to snap it to himself, and they're just going to bowl forward.
Yeah.
I'm taking Cincinnati, too. They're going to, I think, win in a blowout.
I think win. Oh, okay. You seem real certain about it, Jeff.
Kyle, you know what? I guess he has to throw the shit harder from how far down he is on these standings.
I do.
He's really slinging it right now. We have the Gator Bowl. Tennessee finishing the season 7-5 against Indiana, who is 1 win away from 9-win Indiana. This game takes place in Jacksonville. What are we thinking, guys?
I really don't know what to think about this game. Like, Tennessee played better down the stretch. Definitely.
Yep. Yeah, they finished with a 5-game win streak.
Yeah. Oh, God. I really... It's hard to get a real read on this game. What Guarantano is going to show up. What Tennessee team... Tennessee has the better athletes on the team. They do. They've had better recruiting classes. But can they put it together on the field?
So one of the things you brought up Guarantano, and I thought it was interesting that he and Peyton Ramsey pretty much had the exact same timeline this year. They both came into the season starters. They both got replaced. And then both the replacements got injured, and they became starters once again. I think they're actually both performing at a pretty high level right now. My only hesitation for picking Indiana, even though I just watched Jeff Scott, who took a job at USF, coach Clemson to a pretty good offensive game, I'm wondering if DeBoer leaving to be Fresno State's head coach is potentially going to be a distraction.
Maybe.
And in that, it's either, I feel like Indiana's going to come out untouchable, just fantastically good on offense, or they're going to come out being awful. I don't think it's going to be a middle-of-the-road situation here. And I'm betting that Tennessee is just going to be the more steady team during this game, and that they're going to win and get to 8 wins, and unfortunately keep the world from seeing 9-win Indiana.
You're going to make me pick against my my alma mater here.
This couldn't go any better, man. If I knew
in Jacksonville, 9-win Indiana. It's going to happen. I mean, they're going to be galvanized by the fact that DeBoer is leaving. They're going to
win one for the Gipper.
They're going to win one for the Gipper. Jesus Christ, man.
Jeff, if you have any analysis on this game, feel free, and then go ahead and make your pick.
You really touched on everything I think worth discussing. It'll be interesting. Tennessee had really good momentum, like you talked about. I'm interested to see how they've done with time off. It's been almost, a month since they played. So, some of the teams I've watched in bowl games have just come out flat. So I'm curious to see how they play, but I'm going to take Tennessee too. I think Indiana suffered a lot of injuries. They don't have their Penix. And with DeBoer leaving, I think you're right. I think it's going to be too much for them.
And the last time Tennessee had this much time to prepare for a game, they lost to Georgia State.
Let's just think about the first part of the season, guys.
This is no Georgia State that's coming in.
This is Indiana without a Penix enhancement. Yeah, you're right.
So jumping across to the other side of the country, we have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We have 7-5 Nevada against 6-6 Ohio.
I haven't been super impressed with Ohio this year. Defense is kind of bottom of the barrel. Nevada's not a whole lot better. They're only averaging, I think, about 20 points a game, which is terrible. But I think Marty will probably touch on them improving a little bit towards the end of the year. So I think they'll have enough to take Ohio down. So I'll pick Nevada.
Really? Picking Nevada. Okay. So I'm actually going to fight on the other side of that. Nevada, for me, is a pretty good team. They've improved in the last 4 games. As Jeff alluded to, they changed with the play calling duties. They reportedly put Norvell in charge there, and they started averaging 7 more points a game. That, to me, is important, but it's not as important as the fact that they're going to be missing 4 key starters who were suspended after UNLV and Nevada threw down post-game. For that reason, and because Ohio does have a pretty mediocre defense, but a pretty efficient offense, I'm going to go with Ohio for my pick. And if I had to, and I've said it on a few games and been wrong, I don't think this one's going to be close, which means it's probably going to be a Nevada win. But I'm still going to take Ohio.
Well, going off that bad juju that you just put on yourself, I'm going to go with Nevada. I just can't support anything from Ohio. Really.
Understandable.
Yeah.
The Armed Forces Bowl, 6-6 Tulane against Southern Miss, 7-5. There's a few stats here to go over, but mostly I think it's going to be Southern Miss inability to stop the run and Tulane taking advantage of that. Tulane's also underperformed versus expectations this year, but I'm going with the Louisiana touch because seemingly every program...
That sounds dirty.
The Louisiana touch is what happens when you're on Bourbon Street after 3 a.m.
It's what would have happened if Ben Roethlisberger went to...
Okay, all right. So we have... So I'm gonna...
Let me issue the joke.
I'm gonna pick Tulane here. They're renewing the rivalry, the Battle of the Bell, from their time together in Conference USA, which I think is pretty cool. So they're going to be getting not only the Armed Forces Bowl trophy, which I think is a fighter jet, but they're also going to get a painted bell. So give me Tulane to go off the hot Louisiana State, to go off the hot Louisiana Tech, and we'll cover the next Louisiana team after this.
You know what? I'm not going to go against you on this one. I'm going to go Tulane because I really like Tulane, and I think that they definitely underperformed this year, but I think that they will bounce back and have this game. They're going to get the win.
Interesting. This is a really hard one to pick because Tulane is a bit stronger offensively, but Southern Miss is significantly better on defense. I'm going to go Southern Miss.
We have Louisiana versus Miami of Ohio. Before we go over this game, I do want to bring down this little nugget here, and that's the last time that a team from Louisiana played a team from Miami. Louisiana Tech shut out the Hurricanes.
God.
And in that same just absolutely analytical take that Louisiana's good this year in terms of the state, I'm going to pick the Ragin' Cajuns to beat Miami of Ohio. You guys, if you feel like talking about it, feel free. I have just a couple of notes, and then we can move on to the national championship.
I've got so this is Miami of Ohio versus Louisiana. So this is going to be like if Ben Roethlisberger went to Louisiana instead of Georgia that one fateful night, and Miami's just going to manhandle Louisiana.
You don't think they stall a little bit?
Yeah, at the end.
Jeff, what do you got?
This is going to be reminiscent. Of a motorcycle crash. Louisiana is going to dominate them. It's going to be a mess. It's a top 10 scoring offense and a top 10 team in yards per play against a team that's in the hundreds in both. So I think it's Louisiana in a blowout.
I do too. I think Miami is a good team. I think Louisiana is a top 6 G5 team. And they just had the unfortunate position of being in the same conference as Appalachian State.
It sounds like you just don't want a little action in your life.
I just picked Ohio.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
So we have the plan for the listeners here. So we're going to go over the national championship. Again, this is the 30th that we're recording this. It'll be released by the 1st of January. And then we won't be recording another show until after the national championship. And we'll talk about the game. We'll talk about maybe our favorite moments of the season, things like that. It should be a really good time. And I'll reach out via Twitter, perhaps the Fifth Quarter Discord, to give me some other favorite memories from this season so we can get some listener suggestions too. So we've got the Tigers versus the Tigers. And before I even get into this game, I am going to forbid that someone say, well, I guess I'm going to take the Tigers to win, because that shit's tired. I'm so tired of that damn joke.
Yeah.
LSU versus Clemson. Do you guys want to just kind of freestyle it here, or do you want me to assign either of you a team and you have to defend that team and how they're going to win the game?
Assign us a team.
Sure.
Jeff, you have Clemson. Kyle, you have LSU.
All right.
And I'll let Jeff start first. Why is Clemson, little old Clemson, going to beat the Tigers of Louisiana State?
Clemson is going to take their experience. This is their 5th year in the playoffs. They're going to take that experience and that grit. You know, they're gritty. They're underdogs. And they're going to pair it with a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. And they're going to beat LSU.
This is their 4th championship in the last 5 years.
Yep.
Making it to the final game, yeah.
It's because they're underdogs, Kyle. Nobody believed them. Nobody believed them on try 1, try 2, try 3.
They've scaled that mountain not once, not twice.
They've been climbing that mountain with God on their side, and they're going to win this game.
That's a smart pick going with the religion side, Jeff, because I think that Dabo postgame even suggests that this team was touched by God.
I'm glad that you're just falling right in line. Good for you.
No, the check cleared, Kyle. That's why I'm in line.
Oh, okay. Nice.
All right, Kyle, give me the reason. Actually, Jeff, do you have any more points for Clemson?
I mean, the last one is Trevor Lawrence might have the best hair in college football, so you can't go wrong with that.
There will be something I'm really interested in seeing on a non-football scale, literally who has the bigger head between Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. Kyle, tell me why LSU is going to win.
So they're just on another level. Just look at what they're doing to teams right now. Absolutely decimating. They're gonna ruin Clemson's day. Also, you just said that nobody thought they'd be there. Well, honestly, they shouldn't be there right now. They should have lost to Ohio State. Also, you just said that Trevor Lawrence has better hair. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe he's just a douchebag. I don't know. Give me LSU. And honestly, LSU, I'm picking them all the way. I think that Brady has done a wonderful job with that offense. They've turned them into a team that's always been known for their defense, but is turning it on to a point where I don't know if Clemson can stop them. Everybody talks about how good Clemson's defense is, but they haven't really played a team until Ohio State. But you just said that Fields was hurt. He didn't look himself. Was that the defense or was that the injury? I just don't believe that Clemson's going to have enough to beat LSU.
We mentioned in the last show that Oklahoma's defense was not as good as the other three contestants in the playoffs, but we did also mention that over the last 4 games leading up to LSU, they were putting up Clemson-like numbers in terms of efficiency and expected points given up per play. And that was the reason I had given that Oklahoma might make it a game, right? And then LSU literally just shredded them apart. And I think for me, that's also why I'm going to pick LSU to win the game, because I think Clemson's good enough to play a really good game. I do not think that they can I don't think they can keep LSU from scoring 35 points. But I think they can stop Clemson from scoring 30 points. I just worded that weird. I don't think Clemson can stop LSU from scoring 35. I don't think LSU will let Clemson score more than 25 or 30. Thus, I'm taking the Louisiana State Tigers. Jeff, I assigned you Clemson, but you're free to pick whoever you'd like for this pick'em.
In all seriousness, I agree with you. I think LSU is going to be too strong. I wasn't overly impressed with Clemson's defense. Their defensive line definitely isn't as strong as it was last year. How could it be? I don't know if they'll be able to play Simmons. They were kind of playing him as like a deep safety. I don't know if you guys saw that. Their middle linebacker. It was like a backwards Tampa 2.
He's a converted safety, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's 6'4", 240, so I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, especially if Edwards-Helaire is going to be healthy. With 2 weeks, you have to think that he's going to get better. But Burrow, Kyle, you talked about it. Burrow is just on another level. I mean, he is incredible. But I think it's going to be a great game, but I think LSU is going to win.
Just talking about, you brought up, them having to change maybe what they're doing offensively. It does interest me that Ohio State ran with more pace than LSU does. So I'm wondering, for the season, I think the way LSU outpaced Oklahoma was absolutely wild. Yeah, man, I'm really interested, and honestly, I'm never not excited for a championship game, but I am so ready for this one, especially if Clemson starts hitting LSU as hard as they were hitting Ohio State, and vice versa.
Oh, this should be a real fun one.
Do y'all have any other points before we hang up our hat, close the door, and we close shop until after the national championship?
Hey, Tristan Jackson, Syracuse receiver. Had fun in the NFL. You looked good this year. Sad you're not going to be there next year, but go get him.
All right, let's talk just a tiny touch on drafts and who's going out. J.K. Dobbins just announced that he's going into the draft. Do we think that who gets picked first, Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins?
Oh,
Probably
Dobbins. Dobbins is a stud.
Yeah, he is, but he's also got a lot more mileage than Akers, doesn't he? I feel like that if there's anything that Akers might have an advantage there, it'd be mileage.
I don't know. Akers has been there, like, starting for the last couple of years. He's gotten hurt a couple times, too.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of hits behind a bad line.
If only there was a website that we could check. Cam Akers has rushed the ball 586 times this year. I'm sorry, his career, not this year. That'd be a day. That'd be a day and a half. That's A.J. Dillon.
Close.
That's why A.J. Dillon's sitting out, bro.
Dobbins has carried the ball 725 times in his career. Almost 200 more.
Okay.
But he's also produced 2,000 more. Yeah, was he?
I think so.
He played 13, 12, and 11 games in his 3 years.
I'm wrong, then. Don't worry about it.
Please omit that from the recording. Are we ready to get out of here?
Yep.
Excellent. Jeff and Kyle, would you please say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name's Joshua Tracy.
And I am Corwin Heller.
And we are the hosts of a statistics and sports podcast called Juicing the Numbers.
We cover the NFL, college football, MLB, and the NHL with anything that we like to talk about in between.
If you like sports and the numbers behind it, come check out our show, Juicing the Numbers, on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find podcasts. Hit us up on Twitter at JuicingPod.